Hi, I'm Nikki, the Obsessive Bookseller. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm talking about the 2023 new releases that I'm really excited to read. Because I'm getting this video up several weeks into the year, I'm going to include releases that came out in January that I'm excited to read. And next year I will do better at planning and have this one out in like December like everybody else, but whatever. Hey, at least I gave all the authors chances to get their covers revealed. Anticipating new releases and seeing the covers being revealed is one of the most driving things for me as a reader. I love seeing what books are coming out next. There is nothing like knowing a favorite author has a new book coming out, and that anticipation is something that drives me as a reader. I love looking forward to new books. I love seeing the covers for the first time. I love planning them into my reading schedule. I love getting a hold of digital ARCs. All of it, the whole thing, is one of my favorite parts about being a reader. So in no particular order, these are the releases for this year that I am most excited to read. Very high up on the list, The Will of the Many by James Islington, the first book in his new series. If you haven't read Lycaonius yet, do yourself a favor and pick it up. It has a classic fantasy feel that kind of evokes all the nostalgia, but at the same time, it's written with a very sophisticated writing style, with a complex plot structure, and all of that really helps to modernize it. One of my favorite trilogies I've ever read. And so when I finished that, I thought I will read anything this author decides to put out next. Now, this cover is one of the most boring, atrocious things I have ever seen, but I'm still excited to read the book. Sweep of the Heart by Ilona Andrews. This is a January release. Now, by the time this video goes live, I should have already read this book. It was one of those ooh shiny things where an audio copy became available on NetGalley and I just snagged it without even thinking. But this is part of the Innkeeper series. It's book 5, and I've been following it since the beginning. I believe it's originally published as a web serial, and then once they have enough content, they squish it all together for a book. The inn that they're talking about in this series is kind of a multi-dimensional hub, and I love the world building that enables. So you've got all these different types of creatures coming in. You've got visiting different realms and really cool places. Creatively speaking, it's one of my favorite things from these authors, but let's talk about these authors. It's a husband and wife duo. They are my all-time favorite urban fantasy writers. I think having two minds in on it and having both a male and female perspective really gives a lot of balance to the stories because you don't get too much of one thing or the other. They're my favorites for a reason. They are awesome, and so anything they come out with, I will snag immediately, including this one. Lightbringer by Pierce Brown comes out. I'm sure if you're in the science fiction fantasy community, you've already heard about this. Now, I'm anticipating this in the sense that it's nice that it's finally coming out because then maybe I can think about reading more in the series. But I read the first book in the second trilogy, Iron Gold. Well, I guess it's not a trilogy anymore. And I liked it, but it felt kind of lackluster because we had taken all these characters that had come from the first trilogy and tried to continue their story. Whereas in my mind, it had ended. Like, I really wish this next one had come up with different characters because it ran the risk of relying on the merit of what had happened before. Instead of building cool things within the character and the plot, they felt kind of flat to me. There was nothing new and exciting about them. They were like, oh yeah, this is the character that you really liked from this one. Here's what they're doing now. In theory, that sounds good. But it just was a little lackluster. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to bother reading the second book in that until there's news of more. Now there's news of more, and I'm excited for news of more, but I think I'm going to hold off on reading this one right away. This is a kind of anticipated choice. Anyway, this one's supposed to come out July 25th, and I forgot to mention The Will of the Many is slated for May 23rd. My most anticipated read of the year, Blade of Dreams by Daniel Abraham, both book 2 in the Kithmar series. This one's supposed to come out July 23rd. And as of filming this, I am about halfway through a digital ARC because it's my most anticipated of the year. So when I saw that it was available, you betcha, I snagged it and dove in immediately. And it's everything that I wanted it to be so far. We took this really cool city and all of these really interesting characters, and we're taking the same timeline, but we're revisiting it from different characters and their timeline and see how much they add to the story as a whole. And he's slowly building this like pyramid of awesome that I'm hoping in the final book is just going to culminate and like blow my mind. It's working on it. But if you've read anything from Daniel Abraham, whether it be his fantasy or his work with Ty Frank on The Expanse, He's got this very humanistic way of telling his stories, and it's very slow burn and meshed with these characters, and they feel like real people because everything about them is relatable. Even if you can't relate to their situations, you can relate to how they feel about them. And that is why his stories are so memorable to me, and all of that is present in here. I can see how if you didn't appreciate that about the author, these would read really slowly. And I think that's part of the reason why people are having a hard time with the first book. But for me, it was a win, a solid win. I absolutely loved it. This second book is all of that and a bag of chips. Also high up on the list was Tyranny of Faith by Richard Swan, book 2 in the Empire of the Wolf series. I read book number 1 for Patreon Book Club and immediately dove into book number 2 because I saw it was available and loved it. Oh my gosh. Engines of Chaos by Ford comes out April 4th. Now, this is one I haven't read the first book in the series, but seeing the second book makes me really excited to read the first book in the series. And it's always exciting when an author comes out with a debut and then immediately follows up with a sequel. You feel like reading the first book is not so much of a risk, but I really love the covers for these. I know absolutely nothing about them, but that one is on my radar. Generation Ship by Michael Mamet comes out August 22nd. Anything by Michael Mamet, I'm going to drop everything to read immediately. He's one of my favorite sci-fi writers. I want to see what he can do with this concept. I love closely contained stories, so anything that takes place on a ship, whether it be a nautical fantasy or a sci-fi, I love all the room for politicking. And Mamet is such a thoughtful author, and his characters are so interesting in their dynamics between one another that, yeah, can't wait to see what he's going to do with this idea, so can't wait for that one. Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. I've talked about this one at length also. It comes out April 11th, one of my favorite reads of last year. Picked it up immediately when I saw that it was available as an e-arc and loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's a novella. If you like creature novels, this is a superb. And having read the first 2 books in the Greenbone saga, this is nothing like that. So completely different from what I've seen from her so far. It's almost as if I'm reading 2 different authors, and not in a bad way. It's just 2 different styles of story. And reading this gives me hope that I will continue to read more from this author and like her even better with each passing book, because Greenbone was just okay. I haven't read the 3rd book yet. I might be singing different praises after that. But yeah, check out Untethered Sky. It was awesome. City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I don't know anything about this. All I know is I've read Children of Time by this author, and I absolutely love his ideas. I love his writing style. I love his infusion of zoology and psychology into his writing because he has degrees in both of those. Everything about him is so cool. And the storyline for this, from what little I've heard of it, is very compelling to me. I think it's something I'm really going to like. So that one's high up on the list. Demon of Good and Evil, the next book in the Kim Hollow series. It comes out June 13th. Very excited for this one as well. This is one of my favorite ongoing urban fantasy series and one of the few that I don't feel has lost any momentum or steam. Now, if this book doesn't have some really revolutionary changes, I may be saying something different by the end of it. I'm hoping that this will be the point where things start coming to a head. We really do need some significant plot progression when it comes to the demons. At the moment, very excited for that one. Okay, so I compile this list every 6 months or so. It's one of my favorite things to do, biannual feature, and I do it that way so that it gives the publishers time to get the covers out, so I'm not talking about books without covers because I think it's more fun to show you the covers. Anyway, so sometimes the end of that 6-month range can be a little iffy and I'm not sure completely on what's coming out. That was a really long-winded way of saying I have another December release I'm here to include. We're going to count it. Swordbearer by Jennifer Roberson. It's book 8 in the Tiger and Dell series. It came out in December and I don't know how to feel about this one. So this is a compilation of book 1 and 2 in the series. It's one I don't hear talked about often on BookTube. There's a ton of swordplay in this one. The plot is really simplistic, but also really fun. It's a book that you pick up for the fun of it. And I love the characters. They've got a great back and forth banter throughout the entire series. This one reads to me kind of like a Dritz novel because of all of the action and sword fighting that is very prominent in the story. And it's a lot of fun to read, but with a twist because you've got a romance element as well. And I can't remember how prevalent the romance was. It was a component to the plot, but it didn't drive the plot. So I think most readers would find it acceptable. Now, that being said, the first 6 books came out ages ago. They are great. And then Swordbound, book 7, came out much later, and I was hesitant to pick it up. But after picking it up, I thought, oh my gosh, this gave me that slam dunk ending that other series ender did not. And I left this one feeling incredibly satisfied about where we ended things, and yeah, it just all made sense. It felt wonderful. And now we have a book 8. And I don't know how I'm going to feel about this one, because if we read it and it doesn't have as killer of an ending, I'm going to leave the whole thing feeling like, well, that was a waste of time. I'm afraid it's going to sour my experience. And I had the added benefit of, after I read those 6 books, there was a long gap between that and the 7th book. I had the benefit of reading that with a buddy read group on Fantasy Buddy Reads who had recently read the first 6 books. So all of the crap that I had forgotten, I was able to kind of read their comments and reacclimate myself. I'm going into this one with no memory of the details of this world. So thank goodness it's simplistic. I think I'll be okay. I'm hoping if she's smart, she'll put in something at the beginning that kind of tells you like a recap or whatever. But anyway, yes, I'm excited for this one, but also not. To Each This World by Julie Chernita. This one came out in November. One of my favorite science fiction writers. She is superb at creature creation. You've heard me talk about her at length, I'm sure, but she was a biologist by profession before becoming a science fiction writer, and that is so clear in her creature creation. And this is the first thing she has done in a really long time that is not part of a series that she has been working on for like 20 years. I don't know if it's a standalone or part of a new series, but I would love to see what kind of fresh ideas she has infused into what she's doing. Mark Lawrence has a new book. It's called The Book That Wouldn't Burn. It's coming out May 9th. And I read the first few pages of the Thorn trilogy. The name is escaping me, but you know the one. And I'm like, hard nope. Like, this is not what I want to read. Now, granted, I picked that one up long before I got into Grimdark, so maybe now I would like it a bit more. But I thought, when you know something is meant to be that evocative and kind of gritty for the sake of being gritty, it just doesn't appeal to me. But I did pick up his Book of the Ancestor trilogy. I read the first one, I liked it pretty well. The second one, it just felt like a waste of pages near the end half. It's kind of harsh, but it took a direction where I felt like it wasn't really going towards anything. It lost my interest. And so I never continued from there. I had planned on going back to it, but then I found out that a lot of people really didn't care for the 3rd book, and then the next one that came out was kind of as well. However, there are enough things I liked about this author that I would like to keep trying new things from him. So this Book That Wouldn't Burn, the concept, it's like a library, very interesting. I am excited to see what he can do with this new idea, and yeah, I'm on board to give it a go. The Traitor by Anthony Ryan. It's the book 3 in the Pariah series, Covenant of Steel. Comes out July 11th, and I hated the Pariah. I have a big ranting review about that. There were so many things about it that I didn't like. I didn't like it because the story components just did not work. The way they all came together, I did not enjoy reading anything about that. I have a really nice copy of the 2nd book. He's one of my favorite authors. I love his Draconius Memoria series. And I'm gonna buy this one, and maybe I'll make my way through the whole thing within the next couple of years. The new covers get me. It is such a striking cover that it immediately makes me feel like I should be moving on in the series because I want to be able to read the cool new shiny thing. Keeper 6 by Kate Elliott came out January 17th. It's a novella. Interesting story. It's one of the few on the list from an author that I haven't read anything from yet. Oh no, that's not true. I read her, she has a young adult trilogy, and I read that, and I did not like it to the point where I couldn't even tell you if I had read the 3rd book or not. Because if I read it, I just breezed through it as fast as possible to see how it ended, because I did not, it had some great ideas, but the execution was just atrocious. So I have no idea if I'm going to like this one or not. That's funny that I'm just now making that connection. I've never read any of her adult fantasy, and so maybe a novella is a pretty low-risk way to see if it works for me. Children of Memory. I did not like Children of Ruin. Children of Time was my favorite read of the year last year. And so Children of Memory, I keep hearing like, oh, it came out in November. But no, it's not coming out until January. But then you look on Goodreads and it says it came out in November. Is it out now? I don't know. By the time this goes live, it'll be out. And I am planning on reading it. I am not a super high priority on it because of how much Children of Ruin kind of let me down a little bit. But I would like to see where he ends up with everything. The Witch King by Martha Wells comes out May 30th. I love Murderbot. Absolutely love Murderbot. I'm hoping that she takes that new voice, that like strength of perspective, and does something not duplicates, but similar. There's very few authors who write with that much conviction, and I'm hoping that she took what she learned out of that series and applies it to her high fantasy stuff. I have read The Cloud Roads, the first book or two out of that one, and it was just a 3-star for me. The world building was impeccable, but the plot, the main character, they were just kind of unrelatable, and I couldn't get on board. This is a new series from her. I have absolutely no idea what it's about. If I'm honest, it's a little bit lower on my priority, but I would like to get to it at some point, just to see what she does with her writing skills nowadays. And finally, Play of Shadows by Sebastian de Castell. Come to find out that this is actually set in the same world as Greatcoats. It has been a long time since I've read Greatcoats, so I couldn't tell you anything specific from this world. I'm really hoping that he treats it as though you're reading as if you've never read anything in the world before. But how much work he has done over the last year, restructuring things, moving a book a year ahead in publication. So he wrote a book and then moved it forward to write this book because him and the publisher decided that it would be better in that order. So there's a lot of work that's been going into this, and I imagine it's going to have paid off brilliantly. I love this guy's writing. Very overdone in cases, but at the end of the day, he is responsible for some of the most profound things I've ever read in fantasy, and I love him for that. Can't wait. That's everything I could find. I always polish and upload these videos only to turn around and remember one that I had forgotten, or to see a new release for one that I'm super excited about. Hence the reason why a couple of the titles that came out at the end of last year made it to this list. So I guess as long as I include them eventually. But I have this like nagging feeling that I'm forgetting like a major one. Like not Winds of Winter major, but something to that effect. But yeah. There are a few authors who I am watching to see if they come out with anything else, and it's like going to be an auto buy for me, like Robin Hobb, because like the series ended, but I don't feel like it ended. Like the series ended with Fool's Fate and then the Rain Wilds, but then I remember reading an article where she went on vacation somewhere and then came back with a full manuscript for her editor. So I'm hoping she is off just dinking around, enjoying life, working on something here and there, and we're going to get more in this world because I think there's room for more. There's one character in particular who's still around who I would really like to see kind of grow and do more with that character. She's one of my all-time favorites. So anything from Hobb, anything from Joe Abercrombie. I know he's working on a book called The Devil. It has nothing to do with First Law, but he's slated for an optimistic 2024 release, but I wouldn't be surprised if it got pushed back to 2025. So I'm keeping an eye on that one. Brian McClellan's In the Shadow of Lightning. I know across BookTube it has not been a very popular story, but I liked it. I liked it enough to want to continue. It had some flaws, but it also had some great ideas, and I know what he can do. There are some things in the whole 6-book Powder Mage world that knocked my socks off, and a lot of that has to do with the relationship between the characters and how the camaraderie really adds to the experience. And I did not see a lot of that in this first book. I'm hoping we'll get more. And also, like, the epilogue in that one, he, like, dropped a bomb. Like, what the heck am I reading? It could, in theory, be like a jump the shark type of thing, but he kind of laid breadcrumbs, so I don't know. Like they say in Supernatural, it's not jumping the shark if you never come back down. But I don't know what I'm in for in the next book, but I'm willing to see what the heck he's got going on. Just seems so bizarre to me. In fact, it's almost too bizarre. It's almost too many different ideas in one. It's like 2 separate stories in my brain when I think about it. But I am thinking about it, so ergo, I will be reading the next one. I know I have an Ilona Andrews on this list, but I'm waiting for literally anything else by them. Are they going to tell the next Hidden Legacy trilogy with Annabella? Self-publish it? Anything? Are they going to continue Hugh's story with Iron and Magic? That would be superb. Are we going to get another Blood Heir with Julie? I just don't know. There's so many things that I would love to see from them. So yeah, anything they choose to write, I will be on board for that. I'm on watch for that. Editing Nikki here with a couple of updates. So there's a new Kate Daniels book by Alona Andrews. What? How did I miss this? It's book 1 in the Wilmington years, a new saga with Kate Daniels and all of her company. I can't wait. Anyway, this one came out in January, and call me the ultimate loser of a fan, but I missed it. Another one, System Collapse by Martha Wells, a new Murderbot book coming out in November. This one looks to be over a couple of hundred pages, so maybe not quite as long as her other novel, but definitely not as short as a novella. And even now, as I sit here giving you updates, I know there is one that I'm forgetting. So if even future Editing Nikki comes in with the remembrance of it, I'll put it on the screen right now. Cool. Patricia Briggs did not come out with a book this year in March because her last year one was pushed back until August because it needed more work. So I'm assuming that she's going to just cap that onto her year of writing and we won't get a book until next year. So on watch for that. Brandon Sanderson, obviously, with the next Stormlight book. That one's ultimate. So excited for that one when it comes out, but we've got a lot of waiting to do. And for sure, I am very excited for the next John Gwynne book in the Bloodsworn saga. I haven't even read the second book yet. I'm kind of waiting a little bit until we get closer to a third book release, but that one's going to be high up on the priority list for sure. And next, The Empire's Ruin, Brian Staveley. He started a continuation trilogy, kind of a spin-off. And that first book ended with such an exclamation point that I can't wait to see what happens next. Don't leave me hanging. There's so many cool things there, but there's not even a title or a projected date for the second book. And so I'm just Anyway, so those are some of the things I'm waiting for. Really excited for all of them. Between my extensive list this year and all of the books that I didn't quite make it to last year, I have a lot of good reading ahead of me. I would love to know which books you're waiting for. Chances are one of you is going to comment about a book that I forgot about for my list and be like, I forgot to include that one. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye.